The dining room at my parents' house always smelled like lavender and disappointment. Tonight was no different. I sat at the far end of the table with my 9-year-old daughter Emma beside me, her small fingers smoothing the fabric of her thrift store dress. It was clean, pressed, and fit her perfectly, but I could see the way my sister's eyes lingered on it with that particular mixture of pity and contempt she'd perfected over the years. "Pass the potatoes, please," I said quietly, trying to keep the evening moving forward without incident. My sister Victoria pushed the bowl toward me without looking up from her phone. She was scrolling through something, probably her Instagram feed, where she posted carefully curated photos of her life. The renovated kitchen, the luxury SUV, the designer handbags. Everything calculated to broadcast success. "So, how's the accounting job?" my father asked, cutting into his steak with surgical precision. He was a retired surgeon, and even his dinner habits reflected decades of operating room discipline. "It's good, Dad. Busy season is coming up, so I'll be working longer hours." Victoria finally looked up from her phone. "Still doing taxes for small businesses? That must be fulfilling." The word fulfilling dripped with condescension. My mother shot her a warning glance, but Victoria ignored it. "It pays the bills," I replied evenly. "Some bills, anyway," Victoria muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Emma looked up at me with worried eyes. She was sensitive, my daughter. She picked up on tension the way other kids picked up on melodies. I gave her hand a gentle squeeze under the table. "How's the real estate business?" I asked Victoria, trying to redirect the conversation. "Booming. We just closed on another investment property last week. A beachfront condo. The rental income alone will cover the mortgage and then some." She took a sip of wine, her wedding ring catching the light. "Of course, you have to have capital to make money. That's just how it works." My brother James, who'd been quiet until now, chimed in. "Vicky's doing really well. She and Mark are looking at upgrading to a bigger house next year. Something in that new development by the country club." "That's wonderful," my mother said, her voice overly bright. She was always trying to smooth things over, to pretend our family dinners weren't minefields of comparison and judgment. Victoria set down her wine glass and looked directly at Emma. "That's a pretty dress, sweetie. Where did you get it?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "The thrift store. Mom and I go together sometimes." "How resourceful," Victoria said, her smile not reaching her eyes. Then she turned to me. "You know, there are programs for families who need help with clothing and things. I can send you some information if you'd like." My jaw tightened. "We're fine, thank you. I'm just saying, some people just can't afford to give their kids a good life. There's no shame in accepting help." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Children deserve better than hand-me-downs and second-hand clothes. They deserve new things, experiences, opportunities." Emma's hand went to her dress, touching the fabric self-consciously. I watched my daughter's face fall, watched her shrink in her chair, and something inside me snapped. I looked up from my plate and met Victoria's eyes directly. "Like how you can't afford your mortgage without Dad's help?" The room went silent. Victoria's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. James's eyes widened. My father set down his knife with a soft clink. "Excuse me." Victoria's voice was ice. "Your mortgage. The one on that beautiful house you post about constantly. The one you couldn't actually afford when you bought it 3 years ago. Or the one on the investment property you just mentioned. Should I go on?" Victoria's face flushed red. "That's different. That's family helping family. That's Dad paying your bills while you lecture me about poverty." I kept my voice level, but every word landed like a hammer. "How much does he send you every month, Victoria? 3,000? 5? "Please," my mother interjected, her hands fluttering nervously. "This isn't appropriate dinner conversation." "You're right, Mom. It's not appropriate. Just like it's not appropriate for Victoria to humiliate a 9-year-old child because she doesn't like where we shop. I turned back to my sister. Emma's dress cost $8. It's in perfect condition, and she picked it out herself because she loved the color. But please, tell me more about affording a good life while Dad subsidizes yours. James cleared his throat uncomfortably. Look, maybe we should all just know, I interrupted. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of sitting here month after month while Victoria acts like she's self-made when everyone at this table knows the truth. Victoria stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. This is ridiculous. I don't have to listen to this. Sit down, my father said quietly. It wasn't loud, but the authority in his voice was unmistakable. Victoria sat. My father looked at me, then at Victoria, then down at his plate. Your mother and I have helped all of you at various times. That's what parents do. The difference, I said, keeping my eyes on Victoria, is that I don't pretend I'm better than everyone else while accepting that help. I don't use family money to build a facade and then judge others for being honest about their circumstances. Victoria's eyes were glistening now. Whether from anger or tears, I couldn't tell. You have no idea what my life is like. The pressure, the expectations. The pressure of what? Maintaining appearances? Keeping up with your country club friends. I shook my head. I work 50 hours a week. I come home and help Emma with homework. We cook dinner together, we read books from the library, and yes, sometimes we shop at thrift stores. And you know what? She's happy. She's kind. She doesn't look at other people's children and make them feel small. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Mom, it's okay. I like my dress. I softened immediately, pulling her close. I know you do, baby. And you look beautiful. My mother was crying now, dabbing at her eyes with her napkin. I just wanted a nice family dinner. So did I, Mom, I said gently. But nice doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it's not. Nice doesn't mean letting Emma think there's something wrong with who we are or how we live. James spoke up, his voice careful. Look, Vicky, maybe you could have been more tactful. Tactful? Victoria's voice rose. She just humiliated me in front of everyone. You humiliated yourself, I replied calmly. I just pointed out the hypocrisy. My father cleared his throat. The financial arrangements between your mother and me and each of you are private matters. However, he looked at Victoria pointedly. Your sister is right. There's no place for that kind of commentary at this table or anywhere else. Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She wasn't used to Dad taking sides, especially not against her. I think, my father continued, we all need to remember that there are different kinds of wealth, different kinds of success. He looked at Emma and his expression softened. That's a lovely dress, Emma. Blue is definitely your color. Emma smiled tentatively. Thank you, Grandpa. The rest of the dinner passed in uncomfortable silence, punctuated only by the sound of silverware against plates. Victoria picked at her food, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. James tried and failed to start several neutral conversations. My mother looked miserable, but I felt lighter than I had in years. When dessert was served, my mother's famous apple pie, Emma asked if she could be excused to play in the backyard. I nodded, watching her slip outside with relief evident in every step. As soon as she was gone, Victoria finally spoke. I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you thought it was acceptable to make a child feel inferior because of where her clothes came from. I replied. That's not what I was doing. That's exactly what you were doing, and it's not the first time. I set down my fork. Do you remember Emma's birthday party last year? You made a comment about the homemade cake, or Christmas when you compared her toys to what you bought your kids. It's constant, Victoria. The little digs, the implications that we're not good enough. I never said. You don't have to say it directly. It's in every look, every comparison, every carefully worded observation. I leaned forward. And I'm done with it. Emma is 9 years old. She doesn't need to internalize your insecurities. My insecurities? Victoria laughed bitterly. You're the one who's jealous. Of what? Your mortgage payments? Your dependence on mom and dad? I shook my head. I'm not jealous, Victoria. I'm disappointed. We used to be close. We used to be friends, but somewhere along the way you decided that having money, even money that isn't really yours, made you better than me. My mother reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. You're both my daughters. I love you both. Can't we please just move past this? I'd like to. I said honestly. But that requires Victoria to stop treating Emma and me like we're charity cases. It requires respect. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was smaller. I didn't mean to hurt Emma. But you did. And you've been hurting me for years. I stood up, starting to collect plates. I'm not asking you to pretend we're in the same financial situation. I'm asking you to stop weaponizing the difference. My father nodded slowly. That's fair. James added, yeah, Vicky. You can be kind of judgmental sometimes. Victoria looked around the table, seeming to realize she was alone in this. I wanted to be successful. To make you all proud. We are proud, my mother said quickly. Of both of you. For different reasons. Then maybe, I suggested, we could try celebrating those differences instead of using them as ammunition. Victoria didn't respond immediately, but something in her expression shifted. The defensiveness faded slightly, replaced by something that might have been shame. I called Emma back inside for dessert. She came in hesitantly, checking the temperature of the room before sitting down. I cut her an extra-large slice of pie and watched her smile return. As we ate, the conversation slowly normalized. James talked about his job. My father mentioned a fishing trip he was planning. My mother described a new recipe she wanted to try. Victoria remained mostly quiet, but before we left, she stopped me at the door. I'm sorry, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. To Emma. And to you. It wasn't effusive. It wasn't perfect. But it was something. Thank you, I replied. In the car on the drive home, Emma asked, are you and Aunt Victoria fighting? We had a disagreement, I said carefully. But it's going to be okay. I really do like my dress. I know you do, sweetheart. And that's all that matters. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Mom, you're really good at your job, right? I like to think so. Why? Because Aunt Victoria made it sound like it wasn't important. But helping people with their businesses sounds important to me. I reached over and squeezed her hand. It is important, and so are you. Don't ever let anyone make you feel otherwise. I won't. She promised. As we pulled into our driveway, our modest, mortgage-heavy, completely paid-by-me driveway, I felt a sense of peace. The truth had hurt, yes, but sometimes hurt was necessary. Sometimes it was the only way to cut through years of accumulated resentment and false pretenses. Would things be better with Victoria? Maybe. Maybe not. But at least Emma had seen her mother stand up for her. At least she'd learned that worth wasn't measured in price tags or square footage. And sometimes that lesson alone was worth every uncomfortable moment.